This is an extended version of my previous talk of meaning is a psychological value state of being and the singularity's influence upon humanity and psychosis. There's some editing in amongst it, so I think it's worth revising before getting on to the additional additions I have added. So let's begin. I might start sharing screen first. I've got to work that one out, don't I? Share screen. All right, so let's begin. 4 words are my definitions used throughout this paper. What is a single compound word, which to me means what was in the past, what is now in the present, what will be in the future. An unknown completeness, only partially known, but sometimes we delude ourselves we know better than we do. And that word is compared to what is, 2 words in regular use, which simply mean that which current attention is paid to. The third word is singularity, which means to me that from which the universe and its content emerge from, with no good reason to be convinced there's only one singularity. Psychosis is the 4th word. The meaning to me is the meaning, value, knowledge, and ignorance bubble all humans co-create for their self, often engulfing groups, tribes, and cultures. This is all apparent to me, although your understanding and interpretation may differ. And because of truth ambiguity, humanity requires constant truth-seeking of the best values and meanings that serve self, other, and everything that is current and everything which will be in the future, while evaluating its past to the best possible degree. Much of our understanding is tacit, ineffable, only partially or totally subliminally understood, often taken for granted as understood when it is not. Yet we generally function as humans have for untold generations. Subjective and objective truths, or in other words, solid truths and opinionated truths, along with value, understanding, beliefs, and our very knowings, skate upon a foundation of illusion and sometimes faulty conclusions. These conclusions are based on a constructed sense of reality, where the first principle of physicality is only assumed, even though the assumed smallest particle keeps getting smaller and smaller as we understand it to be. Our thinking has the subjective and objective swapping roles in our thinking without our awareness as we make sense of our senses through our cognitive processing. This confusion, along with our conclusions, becomes solidified in our thinking once we accept them as fact for our further thinking. This causes resistance to changing our framing of reality because revision of an accepted fact requires more effort than the simple acceptance of an established fact, thus creating resistance to change, even if one prides oneself on a willingness to change beliefs. So after having lived a life of wonderment and having observed myself and others make conclusions, many of which have proven to be wrong in hindsight, my current understanding is meaning is the contribution that each consciousness produces into the world through its interaction with what is. And the understanding and interpretation of this interaction is what consciousness values most. Written within each consciousness, written within each conscious embodiment, because apparently, but debatably, a consciousness requires a body to exist in our world. There are complete instructions, currently known as genes, that are embedded within this combination of body and consciousness. The incompleteness of such instructions are especially noticeable in the human species. Insects and other animals seem more self-contained in deciding upon their next action, and plants even more so are well equipped. These genetic instructions are how this embodied consciousness needs to react to the environment it emerges into, enabling its survival and procreation. These instructions are based on the experience of the diverse lineage that the current specimen emerged from. While the genetic and instinctual instructions are mainly based on the requirements for the survival of the species, they will be combined by unknown means through the experience of each current individual's experience of living, then passed on to any offspring reproduced to some degree and by some means. We assume genetics, but who knows? Also within each individual of a species, this incomplete genetic instruction set is also utilized in combination with the meaning and values co-created through the interaction between the environment and each individualized consciousness, powering the actions, decisions of each individual entity and combination body and consciousness. Further interaction between other individual conscious living beings go on to co-create the current meaning and values that drive the actions of the current generations of the specific species that we have is being envisioned. This is my conjecture, and I further surmise that each interaction play a part in co-creating the current group psychosis that are in play, especially evidenced within humanity's tribes. Whether these tribes are self-selecting tribes or inherent tribes through breeding. This shared psychosis drives the tribe's actions within the tribe and also their interactions between other diverse tribes' psychoses, otherwise known as cultures, otherwise known as cults, both good and bad, with many denying their culture or attempting to shed it. Truth is, we all belong to a culture, even if its membership is one which we think we have constructed ourselves, but no one does it alone. A psychosis is driven by meaning, be it good or bad, false or true. Any conjecture about the validity of this claim, I assume, will centre on whether reality is external or not. As for myself, I accept such uncertainty. I think that any conjecture will be also based on whether the map is the territory or not. Or in other words, life is the expression of the singularity through individualized consciousness and creation of meaning is co-creation between self, other, and what is. Balancing the content of what is what life is all about, as it is experienced and explored through senses and interpretations, focused, filtered, and framed by feeling, emotion, reason, cognition, thought, logic, concern, co-created values, will, freedom, and constraints, and many unknowns, as the power of the mind is being wielded by us puny humans. Humanity's maturing evolution demands more responsibility to be both developed and taken for the sake of and future of humanity and the environment that it depends upon, because of humanity's ability to destroy itself, whether intentionally or not. The only way I envisage humanity not destroying itself is through better understanding and appreciation of self, other, and what is, increasingly, and with all due humility. So in closing, which is basically the beginning of the extension, in closing, meaning is the value state co-created by self, other, and what is, and the value state is valued the most in the power exchange that happens within every human interaction, big or small, where the psychological and spiritual currency reserve, rather than being gold, is meaning, mined from our minds, which drives an economy based on a never fully satisfied lust for certainty in knowing what is. This gives new meaning to paying attention, does it not? So it's up to humanity to wield such power for the benefit of self, other, and what is, better than previous attempts. We are tasked with maintaining satisfaction for ourselves within a degree of awareness of our knowledge-ignorance bubble. This is the great balancing act that humanity has always faced since reaching an unspecified point in its brain evolution and on into its continuing development, since instinct became insufficient by itself. Where that point was, who knows? Much to digest here. I hope time serves us well as we sail upon the sea of faith, balancing our knowledge and ignorance in the healthiest way possible, as we develop better some systems to live by, driven by our intellect and imagination, learning how to change each other's mind for the betterment of self, other, and what is, with minimum force or encouragement through the power of persuasion via thought, belief, emotion, and communication. Now we get to the footnote, which is really the continuation. As the volume of knowledge expands, so does the circumference of ignorance that surrounds it. This is the paradoxical bubble we can't escape within this lifetime. We may contain the new knowledge, or it may contain new knowledge and new ignorance according to our perceptions, but we will never escape this paradoxical bubble in this lifetime. Coming to terms with this paradox is what coming to terms with this paradox is what lifts most of my sadness. Hence, non-absolute absolutism. Along with this understanding, I also realize that we all live within our own psychosis of understanding, each and every one of us, eking out sufficient sense of certainty to satisfy our lust for certainty. Which Trump phenomena illustrates so well, with everyone inhabiting their own meaning psychosis bubble, some aligning to some degree with others finding it hard to imagine the understanding of certain others, on either side of the political moral spectrums, with many seeing corruption in others as justification for corruption of their own morals, thoughts, and actions, albeit unjustifiable. With Trump as the master manipulator, reframing situations to suit his ever-changing agenda based on self-preservation of the ego, maybe, above all else. There is always competition to master the largest group for psychosis to benefit itself, whether consciously or not. With those with the abilities utilizing many and varied tactics to maintain control, some to balance some to a balanced benefit of self, other and what is, others not so much. Leaving those without sufficient skills to manipulate others' psychosis to either stay within their own psychosis, defending it, or slavishly adapting or adopting to another's psychosis to variable degrees, with some more habituated to lying to themselves and others than most. Of course, anyone who believes their experience of reality, of course, anyone who believes they experience reality directly to some extent will resist this explanation, believing the map rather than the reality which can't be seen because of the virtual nature of our perception. Yes, we do feel the nature of a solid, but misseeing the totality of its structure. With the more we know and the more we know, the more we don't know, being the rule if we are honest with ourselves. It is somewhat ironic that President Donald Trump is the one appearing to trump the psychosis of a large swathe of the population spread on the globe, enough to make me wonder if what is has a sense of humor. How this entanglement of meaning, psychosis, and value plays out, both in hindsight and into the future, remains to be seen, as it is a new understanding awaiting testing over time. Culture is created by self, other, and what is, by recognizing right from wrong over and over, noticing whether it benefits humanity's experience and survival. This is done through the experience of living, interpreting through feelings, cognition, and language while co-creating values that serve to guide actions willed by each and every human will. Co-creating what is now and what will be in the future, at least in the realm of possible human achievement. Note well, this does not raise humanity to the highest stature in the animal and plant kingdom, but it does raise humanity to the highest responsibility for its actions, because what is will likely exist without need of humanity's consciousness. In our ignorance, the spectrum of a healthy human is unknown, just as the spectrum of a healthy psychosis is unknown to us, with only history, memory, and consequence, along with experience, feeling, emotion, and cognition and imagination, leaving us dependent upon self other and what is to guide us to judge what is healthy and what is not into our future, as we have done in the past. And this work is never complete. Thank you for listening. I can now stop the record.